All right, true crime besties, it's time to go deep into this one. This comment is absolutely right, but I gotta tell you the whole story. So that I don't get shadow banned or blacklisted from TikTok, we're gonna, instead of saying the KK, we're going to say CCC. All of the information I'm gonna give you is available on Google, so if you wanna do a deep dive, it's all there. There's just so much that I don't know I can fit it all in this video, but I'm gonna try. Irvington was home to DC Stevenson. DC Stevenson was a elite lawmaker. He was kind of high up. Everyone knew and respected him. He was often seen at all the political rallies, and he was also secretly the Grand Dragon of the CCC. It was around March of 1925 that DC Stevenson went to like a literature fair to try and do some fundraising and saw Miss Madge Oberholzer. Now, Madge was a beautiful woman, and DC Stevenson was like, oh my God, this is the love of my life. She's a gorgeous, I have to have her. He tells Madge, hey, let's go on a date. And Madge was immediately like, no, you give me the ick. Madge's family, they were not inherently wealthy. They weren't poor, but they were kind of what you would call middle class at that time. Her dad was a postal clerk. There were stories out there that her dad was a doctor, but I'm pretty sure he was just a postal clerk. Anyway, DC Stevenson, several creepy attempts to get her to come out and date him. Several times she says, no, I'm not interested. And DC Stevenson continued to pursue. So one night, DC Stevenson makes a phone call to her family and says, hey, there's an emergency. I need Madge to come to my house immediately. He sends his goons to come pick her up. Again, she's just like, I don't want to do this. But the dad's like, he's really high up. You really need to listen to him. He's kind of, you can't say no. Madge immediately gets to his house and feels this like overwhelming, like, oh my God, I should not be here. This doesn't feel right. In which case, all of DC Stevenson's friends continually push whiskey on her, and she ends up getting intoxicated to where she can't function. DC Stevenson then says, we're gonna go to Chicago on a train in the middle of the night. And she's like, absolutely not. I'm not going. I don't want to go. And he's like, well, you're going. Pulls out a revolver, and all of his friends pull out their guns. And she's like, well, I guess I'm going to. So anyway, terrified, she's like, okay, I'll get on this train. And they proceed to head to Chicago. And I'm going to go ahead and trigger warning now for those of you that don't want to hear this because it gets violent. At this point, DC Stevenson takes over and proceeds to force himself upon her and commits rape. And that's awful. But what's even worse is that during the assault, he used his teeth to tear off her breast tissue, chunks of her arms, chunks of her legs, part of her neck, and he actually mutilated her body. He then check into a hotel, and at this point she's covered up. They can't see her injuries, and DC Stevenson tells her, you need to lie to the clerk and tell them that you're my wife so that we can get a hotel room. And of course, being afraid, she was like, okay. She tells the clerk, this is my husband. They get a hotel room. While they're in the hotel room, he continues to assault her. And at that time, she was like, once everything kind of calmed down, she was like, I need a hat because at this point, I'm obviously in dire straits. I can't go out like this. So DC Stevenson sends one of his guys to go buy her a hat. And at that point, she's like, and I probably need some rouge because I look pretty bad. So can you take me to go out into the public to get some rouge? I'll do whatever it takes. I'll pretend to be your wife. So they go out, they go to an apothecary, a druggist, to go get this rouge. But also while they're there, she picks up some mercury chloride tablets in a box. And there's quite a few tablets in there. She, being weak, only is able to swallow 3 of the tablets, but she's hoping that this medication will help unalive her because at this point she sees no out. She's just like, this is how I go. And she wanted to be on her own terms. And because of the medication she took, she is vomiting blood all day long, and she's like, I need to go home. And DC Stevenson says, I'll take you home, but only after we go to the chapel and you marry me. However, DC then panics and is like, you know what, no, I probably should just get you somewhere safe. And he was like, we'll get married afterwards. And she's like, please just take me home. I just want to go home. I promise I won't tell anyone. I'll marry you. I'll do whatever it takes. DC's stupid and was like, sure, let's go back home. When they get home, you're of course like, well, she's obviously mutilated. How is her family even remotely okay with this? They lie and say that she's been in a terrible car accident. Madge's parents then call the local doctor, which he comes over, and at this point it's too late. Madge is septic from the bites, and she is getting kidney failure from the tablets that she took. And here's the part out of all of this entire story that is the most incredible part of the whole thing. Madge decided on her deathbed to write a declaration explaining in gruesome detail everything that DC Stephenson did to her. And she left no stone unturned. She went from the time that she got there to the time that she died. This declaration was the first declaration, accounting, written letter ever in the history of a woman outing her abuser and outing the assault. And today even, it is used as a form of, like if you go to law school, it's one of the first pieces of a declaration that you study because it's such a well-written account and because it was so brave for that time period that if you go to law school, it's one of the first people that they talk about when it comes to any kind of tracking of an assault. Because of her bravery, because of her account of what happened, the CCC was so pissed off that DC Stephenson would do something to a Caucasian woman that they were horrified. And people actually disbanded from the CCC, that particular chapter in Indianapolis. I mean, like, people dropped out of the CCC in thousands in Indiana because they were so horrified that they had any association with a man who would do something like that. And the aftermath went for another year or two after that. They went to trial. Certain things happened. Google the trial of DC Stephenson. It's insanity. They ended up finding that there were briberies. Her account literally opened the entire door for them to start investigating the CCC in Indiana, and it's what caused them to fall apart. So yes, there was the CCC in Irvington. But one of the most incredible things came out of that was the beginning of women coming out and talking. So yes, was there blatant racism in Irvington at one point? Absolutely. But did something crazy come out of the whole thing and they disbanded? Absolutely. Let me know if you want some more Irvington history.